Whenever I'm in a game and I see someone doing really poorly, or I'm watching a newer player, one of the most common things I see is them having empty inventory slots. And not just because they're doing bad and have no money. In Deadlock, this is something you really want to avoid because low-cost items are incredibly cost-efficient. The more expensive an item is, the less value per soul you are getting from that item. You can see this really easily by comparing items with different costs. Even just the base stats that you get along with items are much more cost efficient at low soul values than high. Vitality, for example, gives 11% base HP for 500 cost items, but only goes up to 20% at 6200 cost items, less than double the bonus for over 12 times the cost. Even spirit items, which base stats scale the best, go from +4 for 500 cost items to +16 at 6200 cost items, 4 times the value for 12 times the price. But even beyond that, the stats themselves and items follow this pattern as well. Take extra health and fortitude, two very similar items with different costs. Extra health costs 500 souls and gives you 11% base HP, 160 bonus HP, and 6% weapon damage. Fortitude, on the other hand, costs 3000 souls and gives you 17% base health, 325 bonus HP, and then a conditional 25% weapon damage and 2 move speed. So say we could buy multiple of an item and bought 6 extra healths for a total of 3000 souls to even out the cost between them. Those extra healths would give us 66% base HP, 960 bonus HP, and 36% weapon damage. Clearly much stronger effects than the equivalent costing fortitude. And you can compare basically any item like this. The difference is the same. Really, the only reason you buy non-500 cost items in Deadlock is because inventory space is limited, or for special priceless effects, like who wouldn't want to ride around on a magic carpet, no matter the cost. But seriously, as the price of an item increases, the value per soul that you get for stats on that item decreases, while the item effects get better. So basically what this means is that you always want your inventory to be full, because that is what is going to make you much stronger than having a very few expensive items. Okay, so knowing this, how do you actually use it to buy items efficiently? Because obviously you can't just buy 500 cost items or you'll run out of space very quickly. Well, really there are two applications of this. First, early in the game, you want to focus on filling up all of your slots rather than saving your money for key items. And second, later in the game, if you are ever saving for something, buy filler 500 cost items to fill any free slots that you have. Let's go over each of these individually. So first off, your build should basically always begin with 4 of each type of item to fill out your slots efficiently. There are many popular builds I see that make you quite weak by either hyper-focusing on one item type or having you save for 3k cost items super early on. These builds are very inefficient with your souls, making you much weaker than you otherwise should be. If you take a look at really any good player's builds, they almost always begin with 12 items, 4 from each category. Take Hydration, for example, probably the best player in NA, whose builds you can find very easily. If I take a look at one of his builds for any random character, say Yamato, we can see that this is maybe a bit of a meme build, but even here, the first 11 items fill out your weapon slots and vitality slots completely, and almost fill out your spirit slots with 3 items. Take a more serious build like his Spirit Warden, and the first 12 items fill out your first 12 starting slots. Really, when building items, this is how you want to do it. You want to build efficient stats around your core effects. So take his Spirit Warden build, you want to build stat efficient items like these 500 cost items around these core mobility items that are most important for the playstyle. So figure out the playstyle that you're going for and the core item effects that are most important with it, and then build stat efficient items to support that. The other important thing is to make sure you are filling out slots later in the game with filler 500 cost items. So sometimes later in the game, you are either saving for a big item like a 6200 one, or focusing on upgrading your cheaper items, and you get a flex slot leaving you with an empty inventory space. It is very valuable at this stage of the game to just quickly buy a 500 cost item to fill that slot while you're working towards other things. It may not seem like much, but remember how incredibly valuable those items are for their cost. Especially in a game like Deadlock, where every little bit of health and damage matters to get even the slightest upper hand, it is something that you want to take advantage of. Really, it only costs 250 souls, as you're going to sell it later, which is like 2 troopers in the mid to late game, so it's basically always worth doing. In terms of which 500 cost items to buy to fill those extra slots, these are my general recommendations for each item category. These ones are especially good options, basically good in any situation. These are especially good for when you're shooting a lot, and these are especially good for when you're focused on spells. So in your next Deadlock game, make sure you're filling out your item slots with the low cost, efficient items whenever you can to make sure you're always the strongest you can be and are ready to fight. Anyways, that's it from me. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.